Oh, that reminds me. Do you reckon Tyrone will be my best man?
Oh, yeah, of course he will. Hey, you know what that means, don't you? He'll have to do the first dance with Sally.
Oh, what we having?
Oh, don't worry. She rejected all of my suggestions and plumped for a classic. My Heart Will Go On from Titanic. I did point out that the boat sank at the end of that film, but...
Hey, we should go out later, shouldn't we? Celebrate.
Oh, I'd love that. As long as Bridesmaidzilla's not invited.
Hello and welcome to episode 146 of The Talk of the Street, an unofficial Coronation Street catch-up podcast that thinks we would have preferred if the whole of this week was just Sally spinning around in the wedding dress and Dr. Martin boots. I'm Gavin.
Wasn't it Abby wearing the Doc Martin boots?
I thought Sally was wearing a pair of boots as well as she came running out of the office.
I can't imagine Sally and Doc Martin.
That's why it stood out to me. Anyway.
How are ya?
Way to question the intro.
Seriously. You're not the most observant of people, so I question everything you see. Huh. Like, for example, when I finally got your birthday present hung up, and you couldn't remember that I'd given it to you as a birthday present.
Yeah, it was like 6 months ago. And I looked at it once.
Who could remember what happened 6 months ago?
What did I get you for your birthday?
You got me my Doctor Who backpack and my Doctor Who t-shirt.
See, I don't remember that either.
And yet I carry it with me everywhere. That
I thought it was older than that. Wasn't that older than that?
No, that was this past birthday.
Oh, that was Christmas. Wasn't that Christmas?
It was not Christmas. It was my birthday.
Fascinating. Anyway, did you do an I'm? I don't think you did.
It's fine. I think we've moved on.
All right, that moment has passed.
That moment has passed.
Well, just a note for me on, well, that'll be March 14, 2022. There is no Helen I am for me to write down for last year tonight.
I am questioning your ability to remember things.
Yeah, that works. Good. So we've got our housekeeping done for next year. Excellent. How are you this week?
That
took 2 minutes.
Just keeping routines going and stuff. Next week is going to be a very busy week for my body.
Mm-hmm.
Colonoscopy and endoscopy on Monday.
And up in the downy.
Yep.
Let's clean the tubes.
And then I get my first jab on Tuesday.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Where's that about?
Yay. Up in Lansing.
If I haven't heard anything. I'm starting to wonder if I have actually put my name. It's like, I'll give it a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, who did you sign up with?
I don't think I had a choice at that point.
Well, because a number of different pharmacies you can sign up to get on their waiting lists. And then there's the Eatonbury Health Department, which is what I'm going through.
Eatonbury, is that like a Loganberry or a... or a Never Wake Up berry from the Blue Lagoon. Those weren't Never Wake Up berries, though. They did wake up.
Right.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. And like the ones in the Hunger Games where you eat them and you really don't wake up. And I can't remember what they're called.
They were definitely based on the Never Wake Up berries.
Yes. Only they really worked.
That was a twist. That's how Suzanne Collins got away from ripping off the Blue Lagoon. Some of Brooke Shields' best work. Anyway.
Yes, because so much about the Hunger Games is similar to the Blue Lagoon.
I think it's like,
or maybe just that one thing.
It's scene for scene as far as I can remember. But then I think we've established that my memory's not what it used to be.
No. Apparently the children were outside playing a game called the Hunger Games last night with the neighboring children.
This town is going to turn into Children of the Corn just to get another movie reference in there.
See, I went outside to bring my plants in last night, and I heard a child somewhere nearby shout, "Are you ready for the Hunger Games?" And I said,
There's a
I'm
wee
going back inside now.
there's a wee boy whose name is also Gavin, and we call him Wee Gavin.
Yes, we call him Wee Gavin. And you're Big Gavin.
I think it was him. Because above where we are is Stelly's bedroom, our
Correct.
12-year-old daughter.
Yes.
And then across from this window is where our neighbours are. So I
Right.
can hear them when they're playing their trumpets or whatever and stuff. And when they're playing their little American Ninja Warrior thing, it's right outside that window.
Right.
I think I was just sitting down to work on Wednesday when I heard what I think was Wee Gavin going, "Caw-caw, caw-caw." And then there was a pause, and then there was, "Caw-caw, caw-caw." And then there was a pause, and then he just went, "Stelly." So he devised this little, sophisticated as it was, calling signal for our daughter. It didn't work, so he ended up just having to shout her name. Thus, his plan was scuppered. Caw-caw.
And
So
I
if you
don't
hear
even
a
think
caw-caw-
that worked because at that
No.
time in the morning, she's got her headphones on and her window shut
Right.
because she's in school.
So you're getting your vaccine.
Yes.
That is good.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
This is good.
See, it doesn't feel like there's that much urgency about it anymore.
And yet there should be because I got 3 emails this week about somebody coming down with the COVID at the schools.
Right.
2 at the middle school, 1 at the high school. And yet they want all the kids to go back to school now and then be 3 feet apart as opposed to 6 feet apart. This is why our children are still remote. It feels like
Because
there's
people are
this
so
huge...
good at judging 6 feet. But they're good at judging half of it.
There's just such a huge push to put kids back in schools. I just don't understand it. It's like, don't we have bigger fish to fry?
Mm-hmm.
And yet apparently not. So, who knows? I know a lot of parents who are like us and are like, yeah, our kids are not going back yet. So,
And yet a couple of school districts over, they're back come hell or high water after spring break.
yeah, it's crazy. People are like, kids don't get it. Yes, they do. And they spread it.
And it's the spreading it part that's the...
Right.
Why don't you get this?
I have a friend who's a psychiatrist in Massachusetts, and her whole family caught COVID from their 13-year-old. The 13-year-old caught it and spread it to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they were really cautious because she's a doctor. It's just insane. Anyway, I'm getting off my high horse now.
That's caught up.
How are you this week?
Yeah, I got some bad news. One of my bosses from way back from Scottish Amicable Prudential, she passed away this week,
Oh no.
which I think is the 3rd or 4th boss of mine from that era that's passed away. Wilma Kelso.
What? Wilma's gone?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
She and I were Facebook friends.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
God. We've lost a lot of friends this year.
Feels like it. She wasn't a good boss. She admits that she wasn't a good boss.
But she was a good
great
person.
Right?
Yeah. What happened?
She'd been fighting cancer for quite some time.
Ugh.
And I knew this, and it went back to, I think, shortly after my mum,
Mm-hmm.
that she got in touch and she let me know, but she didn't let everybody know. I guess it doesn't matter now, but I thought she'd got over it. And her daughter's due to give birth to her first grandchild in June, which there's always something like that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah, we've lost like 4 or 5 different friends of different ages and this year. I mean, people have had it much worse than us.
Oh,
but
absolutely. Right.
still, it's just stunning that it seems like every month you hear somebody else is gone.
Yeah. So, in the big meeting room in the sky, Wilma's there with Audrey Riley and Angela Kennedy discussing my poor performance for over the past 12 months and how I don't deserve her eyes. That's not true. I got on very well with all of them.
Yes.
Anyway, shall we preamble, my dear?
And you always deserve a raise. I say this as your wife, and I'm not biased at all.
No, not at all. Give us some of that non-biased Corey news. Oh, wait.
What? I forgot you don't add that in post-production.
I forgot that as well. Hence my, oh, wait.
Corey is getting some new competition.
Oh?
It's hard enough for the show to keep up with new kids on the block like Emmerdale and EastEnders. Now the BBC are getting set to launch one or more new soap set in the North or Scotland.
What?
Or Wales.
This sounds very much like somebody had an idea.
Or Ireland in the next 3 years. On second thought, I think we're fine.
Something might happen in 3 years somewhere.
That's the joke.
Oh, okay.
Oh, God. Anyway, it's being reported as news in other outlets. I'm not the only one reporting this as news. I'm just the only one.
I don't think you had a scoop on this, but...
I'm just the only one with self-awareness to say, I don't think this is really something we need to worry about.
No, and even if it was, do we worry about it?
I don't know. Former Corey star Gwen Taylor has made the jump to EastEnders. The former Anne Foster will play grandmother to Stuart and Callum, whoever they are.
No idea.
No idea.
Cockneys, no doubt.
Do you watch EastEnders?
Nope.
No, you just watch Emmerdale.
Yep.
Emmerdale is the one you watch now.
Yep.
As well as Corey. And when I walk in and you're watching classic Corey or classic Emmerdale, I can't tell the difference sometimes. Most of the time.
There's sheep in one of them. I won't tell you which. I'll let you find out yourself.
Finally, sad news as Faye Brooks does not win Dancing on Ice, although winner Sunny J says she totally should have. But like Billie Eilish at the Grammy saying Morgan Thee Stallion should have won, it really means nothing if you don't hand the trophy over.
Fucked up.
Isn't it? What the hell? Don't say somebody should have won. If you've won, you have the power to give it over. So just shut up, sit down, and enjoy your trophy, Sunny and Billy. And that's Corynus.
I think you fucked it up again.
Did I? It's just that at that point, like, I was running out of space and I didn't want to waste another piece of paper.
I can totally understand. Because there is such a lack of paper in this house. That's Corey news.
And that's Corey News.
I'm going to have a good job editing that. I may be unable to, just to forewarn you.
Fine. It's fine.
Our mailbag. Canadian Helen got in touch.
Yay!
She says, I was listening to your episode about Sean not having any decent storylines. How about if Sean becomes the first person on the street to get COVID? That would be a good way to highlight the seriousness of COVID while giving Sean something to do.
Yeah, be quarantined in Eileen's front room.
I wouldn't mind that.
No. It does feel kind of irresponsible for nobody on the show to have gotten COVID on the show. I mean, we have
through reference, like we did this week. Right,
yeah. And even that, supposedly, it's just long COVID. So this is somebody who's recovered from COVID, which makes it confusing why Aggie's like, well, I can't come because it's not safe. If you have long COVID, if you're having issues after effects, that's not really the same thing unless I'm just totally misunderstanding the science and spreading false information. Anyway, yes, please. I
thought the aunt had COVID.
Should we get that hashtag started? Give Sean the COVID.
We'll see how that would develop over the week. Hindsight corner. Snog, Marry, Avoid was a BBC Make Under programme. Oh, that's my alarm again. I need to remember and switch that off. It's very unprofessional. Snog, Marry, Avoid was a BBC Make Under programme that ran for 6 seasons, 64 episodes from
What?
2008 to 2013. The show focused mainly on transforming fakery-obsessed or slap addicts in Britain into natural beauties by stripping them of their skimpy clothes and layers of makeup and giving them a make-under instead of a makeover with the help of a POD, the personal overhaul device.
Sounds a bit like slut-shaming to me.
Uh...
It doesn't sound like a very good show.
Oh, I don't think it was. I think I've maybe watched 1 or 2 episodes of it. There was a celebrity version, I think.
It's a bit like your dad saying, wipe that crap off your face and you're not going out in a skirt that's short.
It would present them like that and then ask people if they would snog, marry or avoid them. And of course they would all avoid them. And then they'd take off the makeup.
Right, yeah.
They'd become the Ali Sheedy in the Breakfast Club, and all of a sudden they're, oh yes, I'd like to snog or marry that person now. That was a kind of gist of it.
That's not a good...
Did Tyrone do the dirty on Maria? In 2000 he was engaged to Maria, but she broke it off when she discovered that he'd shagged Fizz.
Ah!
And then he kind of done the dirty on Fizz when they were on a break by having a quickie with Gemma.
Gemma?
Yeah, we knew this.
Gemma, who is going to be... who's technically his sister-in-law now. God, they really are just missing the banjos now. Because Gemma is engaged to Chesney, who is Fizz's brother, who is engaged to Tyrone.
Yes.
So they make a square there, don't they?
Yeah. And now this. Oh, that's how this tune goes.
Welcome.
Welcome to Last Year Tonight with me, John Oliver. Just enough time to quickly talk about half rice, half chips. I think this is my favourite title of all time.
Is this about chili con carne?
No.
Oh.
This was...
Americans still don't eat it with rice.
This was Abby taking the piss out of Tracy and her recently revealed sexual peccadillos with Paula.
Oh, yeah.
She's half rice, half chips.
Ah.
She could go either way.
Right. Yep.
I was Gavin and you were nauseous. And this was following my explicit description of Tim's dad's bits in my intro.
Yeah.
We were getting to grips with our new situation and you nearly gave one of my workmates a show when you came into the room while I was in a conference. Keyword being nearly.
Yes.
And then that never happened again.
You've changed the angle now, so if I did come in half undressed, people would actually see me.
Yeah, I had to.
Because now, if I stick my head in to grab something from the drawers, everybody shouts, "Hi, Helen!"
Mm-hmm. I'm in some meetings though where they don't know who you are, like I was last night when you stuck your head in and shouted, "Right, I'm away, get my vaccine, bye!"
No, I was off to get a COVID test. Bye.
Mm-hmm. And then the whole conversation was like, "What just happened there?" And I pretended that it didn't happen.
Of course you did.
Seemed to work.
Because you have to get a COVID test before you get a colonoscopy.
Corey announced its abridged schedule. Alia puts her voggling fingers to good work as she finds out more shadiness in Tim's dad's past, while Tim's dad has more baths than Joseph this week.
Ew.
A trip to the vet gives Evelyn more than an eye-watering bill as she bumps into someone she used to step out with in years gone by. That was a year ago, and it was such a disappointing... Yeah, such a disappointing end to it.
And now she's seen somebody named James?
Yeah, our friend James. We know James.
Do we know James?
Yeah, James is a younger lad that we met when Tyrone first met Evelyn.
Oh, right. Yeah, we haven't heard of...
Not since then.
Yeah, so this is kind of ridiculous. But anyway, continue.
And I don't notice things, apparently. Ken runs into Norris, a fellow resident at Shady Acres, but Norris paints a very bleak picture of life in the retirement home. The writer seemed determined to make Emma a doormat for Seb for the second time as he and Alina deny that they still have feelings for each other. Michael annoys Grace. Neither David nor Gail work at the factory, both hang out at the factory, and now one of them works at the factory. Poor Gemma struggles with the quads continues despite Bernie's best efforts and a horrible friend's worst efforts, and is quizzed by PC Tinker about her drinking habits. Remember, she was drunk when she was looking after the kids, and we all discovered that that's against the law. We learn more about Chesney's personal hygiene regime than we absolutely needed. Shona's magazine subscriptions are up for renewal. Hope wants to stuff Cerberus. Our moment of the week was Gemma's depression and her hopeful conversation with Bernie. And our boring moment of the week was pretentious Chinese-speaking man at Shady Acres. And that was Coronation Street and Talk of the Street this time last year.
Yes. Pretentious white Chinese-speaking person.
It was the Charles guy, was it?
Yeah.
Was it Charles?
I think it was Charles. I think the key point there is that it was a white guy.
He was trying to speak Mandarin and talking about all the times they went to. Yeah.
Not an actual Chinese person.
Shall we dive in, my dear?
Yes, please.
Our first storyline today is Harriet in the cellar. Will is in the cafe when Charles comes in worried that he didn't see Harriet at the Mother's Day service. He assumes that she's not well, so he buys some bickies to wangle her brew over later.
What?
Will covers saying that Harriet is off to Dendyke to check on a parishioner, but...
Gav, it's the wrong show.
Oh shit, these are my Emmerdale notes.
That's a podcast we don't do. So I don't know why you're taking notes.
Oops. Well, move on. Our first storyline today, Team Simon. There we go.
There we go.
I'm sorry, but Emmerdale was just so much better this week.
I
On Monday.
don't doubt it, because I hated everything, almost everything that happened this week on Corey.
Again, there wasn't an awful lot to like. Wednesday was probably my highlight. And I've already talked about it a little bit. Anyway, on Monday, up in the morning, Leanne is getting done up, giving herself a curly blow to go and ask for her job back so she can immediately get an advance on her wages
and we
to
all
pay off
hold our
Harvey.
breath, seeing a hairdryer being used on Coronation Street again.
This could go either way.
It could go either way.
Simon says that he's the new Jacob, so it's on him now. She advises Simon to go see Kelly the Chin and see if he can convince her to keep her mouth shut. When he asks how he's meant to do that, she suggests he gets a curly blow of his own. Wouldn't go amiss. In the hospital, Kelly is told by the nurse exposition that the pill that she took wasn't ecstasy after all. It was a nasty chemical because drugs are bad, okay? Kelly seems reluctant to say whether her foster parents are intending to visit her, but then Simon shows up with on-point makeup and hair. No guessing why you're here, she says. And he says that he came with the intention of tugging on her heartstrings, say that he got involved in all this business because Leanne couldn't cope when Oliver died, that he's not a bad person, and beg for her not to say anything to the police. But now that she's here, it doesn't seem right. So he tells her to do what she has to do, even if that means turning grass. And he leaves, and she seems touched by his speech. Meanwhile, Leanne has bumped into Imran and after a fashion asks for her job back. No problem, he says, but when she asks for an advance to cover some bills that she's fallen behind on, he's less keen. Come back and let's see how you get on, because you haven't officially restarted this job yet.
Right, yeah.
Maybe give it a hot second.
Correct.
Sure, says Leanne, trying to mask her disappointment, but then she sees sucker number 2, Nick, coming out of Roy's Rolls. Billy goes to spring Kelly the Chin from hospital. She reckons this means that her foster parents don't give a shit about her, but he insists that they do. But he's been in her situation, yes he has, and knows how much she needs friends right now. So he tells her to visit Summer whenever she wants. They're about to leave when PC Tinker comes round the corner and wants Kelly the Chin down the station.
Dum dum dum.
That was a strange...
Yeah, why right
entrance.
as she's leaving? Oh, by the way, we need to ask you some questions. Why didn't the police come and question her there in the hospital?
Why are the police involved in? Why are the police involved in this at all?
Because taking drugs is illegal.
Yeah, but as we covered when I spoke to the nurse and said, "What would happen in that situation? Would you call the police?" Nah.
Well, apparently.
Because they're there to make her better.
Right.
So
well, apparently somebody called the police, or the police were called. Maybe when they called 999 for the ambulance. I'm sure the police were made aware at that time because 999 goes to, is a central hub like 911 is.
Yeah, but they don't necessarily, unless you say that you need the police don't come. The police weren't needed in that situation. An ambulance was needed, and that's why an ambulance was called, and that's why we saw an ambulance. I don't think the police would have been involved in this. And I certainly don't think that later on Kelly's going to get charged with possession. No, charged with dealing.
Because there were 2 pills.
She didn't deal any of it.
But you know what? This happens all the time. If you have on your possession more than 1 dose, you can get charged as a dealer. That's how they get you. That's why there's so many people in prison for dealing who aren't actually dealers.
Oh, defund the police. So Leanne, who doesn't work at the factory, shows up at the factory to see Nick. She tells him about the job and then asks for a loan. He wants to know what it's for because they love each other and share details like that. And when she refuses to say, he refuses to pay. That rhymes.
Yes. And then he says, next time, show up wearing just a pair of knickers and a fur coat.
He was on the phone
yeah.
to someone, and he said it was all
Fur coats and knickers or something?
And no knickers. All fur and no knickers or something.
Right, which
meant that it was
apparently
all
that's a
style,
saying.
no substance, I think is what the saying is. At the station, it turns out that Imran has been assigned as Kelly the Chin's duty solicitor. That's coincidental, isn't it, Helen?
Yes.
Billy's appalled as Imran thinks her dad's a murderer and Kelly deserves someone to fight her corner. I know, says Imran. That's my fucking job. So Imran preps Kelly in the meeting room, urging her to reveal who sold the drugs, otherwise she could get done for possession and dealing, which I think is bollocks because she wasn't really in possession of it either because she took them. At home, Leanne is
she had
furious.
to be in possession of them before she took them.
But she's not in possession of them and she didn't get caught in possession of them. At home, Leanne is furious when Simon reveals that he told Kelly the Chin to tell the truth. There's a bang at the door and they think it's the police, and while they argue about whether Simon should hide or not, Nick lets himself in. Tearfully, he explains that he's sorry about the fur coat and no knickers thing, and here's half the money. It's all he could get, and then he leaves them to it. Leanne thinks this should be enough to keep Harvey happy for the time being.
She doesn't know very many drug dealers.
So Leanne is full of piss and vinegar when she goes to Harvey's car and introduces herself as Simon's mum. I'm Simon's mum. But Harvey doesn't give a fuck about this, and Simon owes $2,000, not 1. Leanne says something that could be construed that she was intending to go to the police, and he reacts very badly to this, and Leanne's bravado vanishes. Get Simon to get these fucking drugs sold, or the pair of them will wish that they'd got off as lucky as Jacob did. It's turned out it doesn't sound like he's dead after all. Leanne goes back to the flat and tells Simon that his ordeal is over. He runs off to get her slippers to celebrate, and we see that she has a big package of drugs in her purse. She's the new Jacob. She gets a text with an address, so she rushes back out, claiming to be off to see Nick. Thankfully, Kelly has had the common sense to deny everything and has been let go. Billy offers to take her back to her foster home, but she refuses to go because of that new boy that she won't shut up about. Imran and Billy stare at each other, agog.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, because it sounds like this, at first I thought it was just like an annoying kid or somebody she just doesn't like, but it sounds like this is somebody who is potentially dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or abusive. Which I kind of wish they would explore more. It feels like that would have been a much more interesting storyline than drugs.
Yeah. It also sounds like it's a care home problem more than a foster home problem. I don't know.
No, you can be fostering more than one child at a time.
Yeah.
If Angels in the Outfield has taught us anything.
Indeed. Ashley gets home to find Dev in a reflective mood. He doesn't want her near Kelly the Chin ever again, and they argue until Ash admits that she was the one who bought the drugs. She hates herself and just wanted to forget that for a few hours. Dev shouts that the next time that happens, maybe she should think of the consequences.
Right, Kelly could have died. So all of a sudden he cares about Kelly.
That's all we see of him.
Uh-huh.
Back at the flat, Simon gets a call from Kelly explaining that she didn't drop him in it. Then Nick comes back in looking for Leanne, and to complete the meeting, confusion set up for later on. In talking to Simon, that Sam still hasn't got over his trauma of seeing someone get out of the boot of a car, and Simon is shifted about what's going on. Meanwhile, Leanne is selling her drugs in an area of town so dodgy you'd expect Will to appear out of the shadows and pretend that he's being abused. She hands over the drugs to the guy, but he's heard that Harvey's been selling some dodgy shit so he tells her that she's going nowhere until he's checked it.
A guy with a massive mane of hair.
I bet Leanne's glad that she's all dressed to the nines for this transaction.
Yes.
But it turns out the stuff is fine. The guy tries it on with Leanne, but she threatens to tell Harvey that he tried to rip her off, and so he stands aside and lets her run back onto the street. Billy's been on the phone to the social services, and she has to go back. She refuses, and then learns that Imran and Toya foster too. Isn't that a coincidence?
Well,
Didn't I call that?
we both called that last week, yeah.
Great, says Kelly the Chin. I'm stopping with you then. Billy tries to explain that it doesn't work like that, not even in soaps, but Kelly has made up her mind. Nick catches Leanne on her way home. He refuses to be fobbed off. Something's going on with Simon. It's written all over her face. What the fuck is going on here? So they go to the factory where Leanne almost tells Nick the whole thing, but she misses out the bit where she couldn't find the extra grand, so is now running drugs for Harvey. He still smells bullshit and calls her on it. Asha meets Kelly in the community garden and apologises. Kelly accepts it, says that it might have worked out for the best if Imran ends up being her new foster dad, and besides, she's taken the ecstasy tons of times. This isn't anything new. Asha is surprised at this and realises that the tough life that she thinks that she's had isn't so bad by way of comparison. And back home, Leanne wants Simon to stop working at the chippy and then gets a call from Harvey. He's quite the micromanager drug dealer, isn't he?
He really is.
Jeez. Just let me do my job, Harvey. Don't need you hovering over me all the time. She thinks that they're square now, but he decides when they'll be square, and in the meantime, he's lined up another delivery for her tomorrow.
Ugh.
On Wednesday, Leanne's off to work.
How can she think that they're square when she did not give that other guy nearly that whole block of drugs that she's got in her tote bag now?
Big block of drugs.
Big block of drugs stuck in a tote bag.
So sounds like a fun-loving criminal song.
It does.
Little 90s reference there for the kids. Smoke 'em if you got 'em. On Wednesday, Leanne's off to work chatting with Nick about having the boys for tea. He offers Sam to cook for them all, but she suggests going to Speed Dial because they only ever eat there 4 or 5 times a week. Toya comes over and apologises for being brisk the last time that they talked, but it's all water under the bridge, says Leanne, who hurriedly wants to go break off the conversation and go to work. At Speed Dial, Sam is boring everyone with some hot curry facts. Leanne isn't there and Nick is worried that she's going to be a no-show, but on the positive side, Simon apologises to Sam and they seem to be friends again, and it transpires that Natasha will be coming back from that London tomorrow.
What?
Sam has taken Simon outside to point at the moon when Leanne arrives. She's got caught up in something and is sorry that she's got caught up in something and is sorry that she's late. She and Nick talk, but it's awkward, and it's still clear that Leanne isn't doing great. So much so that Nick sheds a solitary tear.
Poor Nick.
On Friday, Sam, I don't think he works at the factory, but he turns up at the factory. Wasn't he doing their legal and compliance work? I think. And
Nick does say this week that he should put Sam to work in the factory.
He wants to
give him a job.
Work on the sewing machines.
Yes.
That we hardly ever see anymore.
Right.
And he identifies one of the bits. I can't remember the name of it.
the
something dog, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then Natasha, who doesn't work at the factory, turns up at the factory to pick up Sam, who doesn't. Well, you get the idea about that. Sam and Nick had planned to watch Rocky 4, but that'll have to be put on the back burner because now Natasha's back, Nick will be moving out. Nick looks like he's worried that he may have forgotten to clear the history on Natasha's PC and then flicks a tear away from his eye. Pleased to be handing Sam back to its rightful owner. Nick goes back to the flat and Leanne's there. Imran's told her that she can do her filing from home apparently. Having something to concentrate on is helping Leanne. He brings up the fact that Natasha's back and he can't live there anymore, so he's looking forward to moving back home. He's ready for it. Well, she's not. Everything's a mess and it's still too soon.
Even though it's his place.
She tells him that she loves him and asks him to be patient. And then a solitary tear tumbles down Nick's cheek like a heavy raindrop trickling down the leaf of a daffodil, bending its stem until it falls to the ground. And as it plummets to be absorbed once more into the earth, it thinks to itself, not again. And then it thinks, yeah, this is all very well and good, but this is my fucking house and I've nowhere else to live. So like it or lump it.
Right, yeah, it's... I don't know if it was Christy or if it was the former the Twitter handle formerly known as the Ben Price fan page, who
We need an acronym for that.
who tweeted at Coronation Street this week asking who pays the rent, and the Coronation Street Twitter handle just very coyly said, "Well, who do you think is paying for it?" Winky face. So they don't know either.
What could that possibly mean? I think
means
no
they
one's
don't know
paid. Right. Nick, Natasha and Sam are at speed dial because it's been 24 hours since they were last there.
Right.
Nick explains about Leanne not being ready for him to move back in the flat, so he's going to have to find a short-term rental or sleep at the factory or move into number 8 or sleep on Audrey's couch or any number of the options that are available to him. Sam suggests that he stays with them and Natasha's fine with this. Nick just has to check with Leanne first, but this sounds like a great idea. And that's as far as we get with that this week.
Does that really sound like a great idea?
It sounds like what we thought was going to happen the first time round is going to start to happen now the second time round. That by the time Leanne is ready for Nick to move back in, Nick and Natasha are going to be
back together,
making a little Sam number 2 there.
Well, and then Leanne's just going to have to fall in love with Harvey, isn't she?
Because people have to fall in love with somebody, I guess.
Yeah.
I hope that's not...
The whole Alina and Tyrone thing
Again,
has proven anything to us is that somebody has to fall in love with somebody for no apparent reason.
So yeah, maybe this is a time where that doesn't happen. Because based on history, where every time this has happened, maybe this is a time it doesn't happen. Maybe Nick and Natasha don't end up.
And at least Natasha at first was like, "No, I don't think that's a good idea, Sam." And then Nick's like, no, it's fine.
She seemed very... Yeah, she wasn't keen on the idea.
No, she didn't.
She wasn't dismissive of it. She was just, okay, fine, if you have nowhere else to stay, then sure. Because I think Nick is now...
She kind of gives in to everything Sam wants already, so...
But Nick has won her over in his looking after Sam, because her whole concern at the start, or so she said, was... that she didn't want somebody just to be coming in and out of Sam's life. Right. If you want to be part of Sam's life, then you're part of Sam's life forever. Right. And he seems to be living up to that side of the bargain. Yes. So he has some bargaining chips with her.
Absolutely.
Now, Leanne not wanting Nick back, is that just because of the whole drugs thing?
I think it's just because of the whole drugs thing.
If it wasn't for that, I get the impression that she'd be kind of desperate for him to come back and a bit of normality
Pay the
again,
bills.
right? Pay the fucking bills. And now Simon, who has kind of caused this whole maelstrom of
has no idea,
woe, is back to normal. And,
and all is forgiven.
Kind of cocky as he comes in saying, "Oh, what, you a walking, talking encyclopedia of curries, eh?" Uh-huh. Little cheeky chap as he comes into speed dial, having some top banter with Sam.
They're back to being brothers.
All his bother has now,
just
now evaporated.
Lifted off of him. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's going to last?
Does Harvey care about Simon anymore now that Leanne's doing it?
No, because I think Leanne is a much better option for him than some stupid kid who, like Jacob, is going to get caught or get in trouble or something.
Or rip him off.
Something's got to happen, though, because, if he's passed around dodgy pills, but also not dodgy pills, that whole thing just kind of confuses me, too. The whole dodgy pills, not dodgy pills.
It was a strange...
And how did that guy test whether or not they were dodgy or not? Did he take one? Because he didn't really seem high.
I think he's got a mass spectrometer in the house to analyse the chemical makeup of the compound.
He looked the type.
Yeah. And it looked like the kind of flat that would have multi-million-pound medical or scientific equipment in it. Our next storyline today is Bridesmaidzilla. I think this was the only bit this week that I really enjoyed.
And see, I didn't really... I wasn't hugely happy with a lot of this.
Well, let's find out which bits.
Poor Abby.
On Monday, Abby has got the week off, and Kev asks her if she's going to get some wedding stuff sorted out. but she doesn't really know what that means. And so she asks him for a list of things that she has to do. He hasn't got one, but knows someone who has. And then Sally shows up with binders and enthusiasm.
Right, yeah. Without Abby's knowledge, he has gone to his ex-wife to ask her to plan his wedding with Abby.
Yes.
Without talking to Abby first.
Correct. This isn't weird. Sally, predictably, is a fucking nightmare. Well, maybe not so much, but Abby isn't keen on the regimented approach. She's about to ask Sally if she wants a bag of cheesy poofs, but Sally thinks that she's about to be asked if Sabby wants to be her maid of honour.
Sabby?
Sabby. Sabby promises to focus, but now...
Allie?
That'll do. Really wants to know who Sabby wants. Later, Abby stomps round to complain to Kev for inviting his ex-wife to be her wedding planner, who has now made herself maid of honour. Fizz is there looking for Tyrone, who's probably at home having a cold shower thanks to another storyline. Kev wants Ty to be his best man, which means he gets to dance with Bridesmaidzilla. In the pub with Fizz and Jenny, Abby's complaining about Sally and saying that she doesn't even want a maid of honour. Everyone thinks it's because Sally is Kev's ex, but Abby insists it's got nothing to do with that and they're really good mates. This seems to put a bug in Abby and she rushes off without ordering to tell this to Sally, who thought that she had been asked, but turns out she actually demanded to be the maid of honour. Right,
and she also apparently has been shooting down, what Abby wants for her first dance and all this other stuff. Is saying, no, it has to be My Heart Will Go On from Titanic.
Yeah. Which was just a lead into the joke for Abby to say that boat sank, I think.
It's just, first Kev blindsides her. And then instead of helping her, Sally just is trying to make her into somebody she's not.
Right. She just takes over.
And yeah, when she just had her own frickin' wedding. So if she wanted to do all of this stuff, she should have done it in her own frickin' wedding. For Pete's sake.
She just likes weddings.
Well, I like weddings too, but I'm not going to tell somebody that they can't have, that they have to have a certain song or force myself to be the matron of honor.
She doesn't want a bridesmaid and she doesn't want a fancy traditional do. It makes her feel like a fraud. Sally tells her no one deserves this more than her and she should have whatever kind of wedding makes her happy. So Abby wants Sally to be the one to marry them. She becomes the celebrant. And Sally is in.
Yes. And where was this whole you should have the wedding you want
at the start
person
of the day?
At the start of the day when she was forcing her to dance to Celine Dion.
As much as I liked this, and I did like it because it's Sally, there's so much of this is lifted from the copybook of Friends. Sally is Monica trying to arrange Phoebe's wedding.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then we
Abby
have
is Phoebe.
And then we have everyone trying on the wedding dresses a little bit later. That also happens. So.
Yes, there's no beetroot in Friends though.
No, thankfully. On Wednesday. So thanks to Kev last week, Debbie goes round to see Abby and offer her services. She goes on about how she knows someone who has a wedding boutique and they owe her a favour because Debbie covered for her once when she got her hold of someone during the Bride of Chucky. I'm not sure, I wasn't paying attention. Abby tells Debbie to keep her fucking nose out of her business. So she goes to Roy's Rolls and sees Tracy and complains about that bitch Debbie who's ferrying in loads of designer dresses to the bistro for a dress party with champers, a finger buffet and a private chef. What an utter cow. And when Abby tells Tracy to go along with her for some moral support, Tracy bites off her hand on the proviso that she doesn't have to be nice to Debbie. So they land, and she's not nice to Debbie.
No.
So they land on the bistro, and immediately Sally comes sprinting out of the office in her dress, and then spins for a good couple of minutes. And then she's a bit put out when she sees that Tracy's in tow. Sally's a celebrant. Sally. But the sight of Sally in the wedding dress gets Debbie, and eventually Abby, keen to dress up themselves, leaving Tracy to get wired into the vino.
Abby's not keen to dress up.
She kind of rushes off.
No, she doesn't. They force her into both dresses that she tries on, and she's not happy with either one of them.
Debbie and Sally are getting into the swing of things, trying on dresses. Abby has tried on a dress too, but seems to be doing squats and stretches to see how good it would be in a fight. Tracy is in no mood
And she's wearing her Doc Martens.
to hand out compliments and thinks they all look stupid. But Debbie has one more dress to try for Abby.
And what is that tattoo she's got on her arm?
I can tell, it looks like there was a lot going on in it.
Yeah. I'd like to see that more close up.
But Debbie has one more dress for Abby to try on, and if she doesn't like that, she can get married in her brand pants for all Debbie cares. She even offers to pay for the dress. Abby mutters under her breath that she's doing all this for Kev, then picks the knickers out of the crack of her arse and follows along at the back of Debbie. The other dress is nice, but Abby isn't happy and reckons that it's all because of Debbie. Sally sighs.
She can't breathe in it.
If this continues,
it's too tight and it's not Abby's style at all.
It's going to make for some very stifled family photos, says Sally.
And Debbie makes all these really rude comments about, well, of course you don't like it because you're lower class and you don't understand the finer things. And it's like, fuck off, Debbie.
It's Kev I feel sorry for, says Debbie, and Tracy encourages Abby to lamp her for everything that she's done. Abby shouts boo, and Debbie, in a white dress, falls backwards onto Tracy's beetroot salad, but not like that.
But for some reason, Tracy had left
On the banquette.
Yeah.
And not on the table.
Why?
Debbie wants
Just
to
so
kill...
Debbie can fall into it.
Debbie wants to kill Abby, and then Tracy. She looks like a baboon with piles, according to Tracy. Sally helpfully points out that a baboon's red arse means it's ready for its hole. Horny or hemorrhoids, says Abby, but all the laughter dies when Debbie reveals that dress cost $5,000.
Why would the laughter die down? None of them have to pay for it.
Exactly.
Debbie maybe has to pay for it, but none of them have to pay for it. Mm-hmm. Debbie's the one who got these dresses. Debbie's the one wearing the dress. Debbie's the one who fell into beetroot.
Yep.
None of this is anybody else's fault.
That's kind of Abby's fault.
Well, she shouted boo, but she doesn't have to pay $5,000 for a dress that's ruined.
I did wonder why this was a thing that brought a little bit of calm and civility to the occasion, that someone was going to be out of pocket for $5,000.
Right, and the designer wedding dresses, of course, $5,000 actually sounds rather cheap.
Back in their civvies, Debbie's trying to get the stain out. Sally has found a pair of marigolds from somewhere. At Tracy's suggestion,
she carries them around in her purse.
Abby throws some white wine on the dress and it's just getting worse. Debbie throws out Tracy and Sally. Abby, you stay fucking put. So Debbie and Abby clean up the dress, but it's not really working.
Debbie made Abby try to clean. Abby's doing all the scrubbing. It's like, why is Abby doing this? Why is this Abby's fault? Abby didn't even want any of this. She didn't want the dresses. She didn't want to do this. None of this is Abby's fault. It's all down to Debbie. Why is she making her scrub it and making her feel guilty about all of this? Nobody should be making Abby feel guilty about anything when everybody's trying to force Abby to be somebody she's not. I hate this.
You're stealing my joy.
Poor Abby.
As they chat, Debbie apologises again for everything, and this time it seems to work on Abby, and she quietly acknowledges her. And when Debbie calls her friend, it turns out that the dress was just a sample, so there's no charge after all, which surprised me, let's just say. She and Abby laugh as Kev comes in. He's spoken with Sally and was expecting World War III, but he's pleased that they've turned sisterhood. And on Friday, Sally, somewhat predictably, is taking the celebrant thing very seriously. She needs her part to be original, creative and memorable. She needs to deliver something that encapsulates the couple. Tim points out that Kev likes the grease gun and Abby's fond of the compressor. Again, not like that. Mm-hmm. Sally orders
totally
Tim
like that, though.
off to have a shower so he can stand in for Kev during the rehearsal. And the stand-in for Abby... Who's available? Oh, it's Kirk.
Yeah. This doesn't make any sense except to be a joke. It's just meant to be a joke because, what, there are no other women on the street? Faye's not upstairs just waiting to come down the staircase of discovery?
Mm-hmm. They compare chest hair to see who gets to be the groom, and Sally doesn't know why Tim is in such a mood, but he reveals it's because Kev has asked little Tyrone to be his best man, while Tim asks Kev to be his best man at both his weddings. Kirk points out that this way Tim has no responsibilities and can just get bladdered, and that seems to put a little bug in Tim's ear. Then Tim bumps into Kev and Abby on the street and they ask him to join them for a pint. Why don't you ask little Tyrone, says Tim, and he keeps walking. Sally comes by and says that Tim is feeling left out and asks if he can be involved. Abby insists that she's not having bridesmaids. That was funny, and nobody reacted to it. I think, well, maybe Kev looked a little bit pissed off, but nobody chuckled. It was pretty funny.
I think one of the things she's saying is, and this is going to look really weird because he's already got a best man. So if he has an usher or something and there's nobody standing on Abby's side.
I don't think that's what she meant at all. I thought she meant that Tim could be the bridesmaid.
See, I thought it was like, look, I already told you I'm not having any bridesmaids. It's already going to be weird that you're going to have a best man standing there and I'm not going to have a maid of honor.
Oh, I think you've read much more into that than I did. I just took it as, well, we'll see. We'll give Tim something to do. Well, I'm not having bridesmaids. Anyway.
You want to see Tim in a dress? Is that it?
He's done it before. He'll do it again. Kev says that he'll see what he can do. So when the next bump into him, they offer him the role of chief usher. He wants to know who he'll be in charge of. They point to Seb, who's there to explain what's going on in another storyline. Tim is made up and gleefully runs down the street, telling Sally his good news on the phone. And that's as far as we get with that this week.
Like a child.
Yeah, well, Tim's been kind of childish all through Friday.
All through the history of the show.
Showing off his chest hair.
Because let's remember, what is it, 2 weeks ago when he and Steve were being very childish about getting to drive a hearse.
Yeah. I typically find Tim being childish funny. I found that kind of funny.
Yeah.
It was like a wee boy running down the street.
Yeah. Yeah. It gets old after a while. And then when you see him like being like an adult, like in the whole face stuff, I don't know. It just, meh.
Oh, you've managed to encapsulate that storyline perfectly, and some grunts and a shrug.
Well, because once again, this is trying to soothe someone else's ego in a way that's not what Abby wants, but she's just going along with it to make somebody else happy when it's her day. Mm-hmm. All I could think of is that I will be really, really happy to see Gemma and Chesney in their karaoke wedding. Someday. Someday, give me that karaoke wedding.
I'm not even sure for that.
I don't either, but I just want to see it.
Okay. Right. I think the writers are creating a rod for their own back with this, but sure. Our next story, well, see, that was meant to be, I'm sure that was meant to be the fluff. That was meant to be the fluff funny bit.
Yeah.
The only thing that it really did was it made Abby and Debbie not really hate each other as much as they did going into it.
Right. Yeah, that's the one good thing that came out of it. But it also just makes Abby a walking mat for everyone else on the show to force her to be something she's not. And that makes me sad because I like Abby and I like her just the way she is.
I do like that tattoo, whatever it was. It made me look at my arms thinking, it's been a while.
Yeah, yeah.
I've got lots of space in this arm.
I know.
A bit less space in this arm, but...
Once I'm vaccinated, I'll make an appointment for my next tattoo.
Oh, what are you getting?
I don't know yet. I've got a list.
Our next storyline today, Born to Ron. On Monday, Ronnie bumps into...
Oh, okay.
Grace and Michael. I wasn't doing 2 Emmerdale gags this week. I'll save that for next week. Ronnie bumps into Grace and Michael, who are about to get their 3D scan. Ronnie asks if they're going to find out the sex. Grace doesn't want to know, thinking the surprise will get her through the labour. Michael wants to know so he can paint everything blue or pink. He asks Ronnie's opinion,
or green,
which
or white.
flusters him somewhat, and then he suggests a piss-up, which is all he's really done so far, which can then be a gender reveal party. Grace is dead against it, thinking the party sounds worse than childbirth, but when Michael says that she could get a nice surprise at the end of it, she seems to come round to this terrible idea. Right,
yes. People have died at gender reveal parties. They should not be a thing.
I've read the headlines, but I've never read any content. Why are people dying at gender reveal parties?
Because people are doing like pyrotechnics to like explode pink or explode blue.
So they're not fighting?
No, right. No. They're getting shot accidentally or, hit accidentally with pyrotechnics or inhaling or ingesting chemicals. It's just a dumb idea.
Yet another top quality American import.
I
into
know.
the UK.
I was like, oh no, please tell me this isn't becoming a thing in the UK.
You're welcome, UK.
Fewer pyrotechnics in the UK, though. Although I guess you can buy fireworks anywhere in the UK. It's not like guns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Because people, our British friends are always complaining about fireworks at weird times.
They want to move over here. There's fireworks far more often over here in the middle of the day when nobody can see them.
Not really.
Yeah, really.
Only in certain times a year. There hasn't really been very many fireworks.
Not really, but only calendar specific. Michael gets home from the scan and Grace has gone along with the plan. That rhymes as well.
Yes, it does.
She's dropping the results for Tracy to make some things, I don't know, for a gender reveal party. Ed
like a
worries
balloon or something.
about the expense once he learns what a gender reveal party is. But Michael says that Ronnie's paying for the lot, and Ed is not happy with this, thinking that he's getting shown up.
Right.
James thinks that he's just feeling sorry for himself. So Ed, who doesn't work at the factory, goes round to the factory to apologise to Michael, who I forgot had worked at the factory, and to insist that he's going to be the one to pay for this stupid fucking party, and he goes off to dig out his tie with budgies on it.
Right. Or parrots. Is it parrots? I think it's parrots.
I think they landed on budgies. Ed explains all this to Ronnie in the pub, basically telling him to keep his nose out. Ed goes for a shite, and then Ronnie's mystery levels take a little rise when he gets a call from someone he doesn't want to speak to, and he lets them know this in no uncertain terms.
Yeah.
Who could this be? On Wednesday, Grace and Michael are in Roy's Rolls, drawing up a list of party items to source. In comes Ronnie, who announces that he has a present for the baby he needs to get in the house, so Michael explains where the key is hidden. Under a flower pot. Belter. Then when Grace mentions that she'll be bussing it into town because Michael has an important meeting, Ronnie offers to pick her up. So Ronnie's wrapping a present in the house when there's a knock at the door and he shouts someone to come in, and then this very sophisticated looking woman comes in. And
Half his age.
In all the liquor dens across the galaxy, I find you in a terraced house in a depressed, nameless part of the northwest, she says. She knows that she messed up, but she begs him to come home with her. She's still his wife.
Timbot 4000 says, who eats chili con carne without rice?
Well,
All of America.
it bears repeating.
Timbot 4000 says, shit just got interesting.
That as well. In fact, more that than the first thing you said, Timbot. Because now Ronnie has two mysteries.
Yes.
What's the deal with his wife, and why
Right.
is he here in the first place? Well, except we know the answer to
Right, yeah.
bring it a bit.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Grace is outside Fresco's, which, I'm sorry, they need to update their livery. That logo is straight from the 1970s. 1970s. So you
That
think
doesn't really work with 70s.
pale blues
Like
and
80s.
yeah, that works with the 70s. Of course it does. And she leaves a message with Ronnie to tell him that she's ready to get picked up. But hold on, wait a minute. She needs to pee again. Give me 15 minutes, she says, and she heads back into the store where hopefully she'll buy a pair of jeans without a fucking hole in the knee. Back in the house.
You sound like an old man.
Ronnie's wife explains, I'm an old man. Ronnie's wife explains the convoluted means that she employed to track him down and then accuses him of shacking up with Aggie.
What?
Ronnie puts her straight on that score, and there seems to be something else going on here. Something about Ronnie refusing to introduce his wife to their Baileys ever and not inviting them to their wedding and all that kind of stuff.
He's embarrassed because she's half his age.
Is that why, you think?
I don't know.
Ronnie wants her out. There's a party to organise, but his wife, who's still unnamed at this point, thinks this is an ideal time to meet the family. Grace has had her pee and is heading back to the spot to wait for Ronnie when the store security guard comes up and wants to see a receipt because it looks like she didn't go through the checkouts. Grace explains about her propensity for urination, but it cuts no dice, and she's led back to the store.
Right. He's like, you didn't go through the checkout, and yet all of your stuff is in bags.
Right.
So apparently, you see, you had to have gone through a checkout at some point. Also, there's CCTV footage, I'm sure, of her going through the checkout. This guy's just a dick. I mean, obviously, but still. It's just...
In an office, Grace is hunting through her bag, but she can't find the receipt, and her phone's out of charge because the plot gods demanded it to be so. The guard goes off to check with his manager and call the police, and he locks Grace in the office. When she realises this, she looks like she's going to go into labour. I found this very triggering.
You did.
When I got caught shoplifting, that was what happened to me.
You were locked in?
They locked me in the office, yeah. They locked me in the office
Of course, Grace is not shoplifting.
with my friend, who was also shoplifting with me. He locked us both in the office. And just before the guy came in, I pretended to steal something from the office. And we both found this hilarious. And that was when the police came in, and that didn't create a very good first impression to the police when we were laughing when they came in.
Of course, neither one of you were pregnant at the time.
I just got the all clear. It was a false alarm.
It was just chili con
I did a
carne.
very strong curry the night before, but yeah, I peed on the stick and it was fine. We learned that the woman is called Cat. I presume with a K.
Right. So is it Catherine?
Or Katrina.
One of the two.
Or just Cat. We don't learn what has gone bad between her and Ronnie, but we do learn that the reason that he's so keen for her to leave is because he was with Aggie before Ed was on the scene. Ed knows nothing about this, but Aggie got knocked up as soon as she and Ed started dating, and Ronnie needs to know if Michael isn't really his nephew, but is his son. And at this, in comes Ed. Who's this?
And this is ridiculous. Like, she breaks up with Ronnie, starts dating Ed, and then just magically ends up pregnant shortly thereafter. The timeline there just does not work for me.
Why?
Because that's not the way it works. Unless they started sleeping with each other immediately, like on their first date.
You've seen Ed, of course they did. Of course they did.
No. And then, the first time they... Like on their first date, they had sex, and she became pregnant.
You were about to say something, then you stopped saying something.
I was basically just going to say the same thing that
Okay.
that I said.
The timeline's a little muddy.
Yes.
Thinking on his feet, Ronnie introduces her as his business partner. So not only weren't they invited to the wedding, they didn't see any photos of it or anything.
And they've never met her. This is weird.
Ronnie wants to rush off to pick up Grace, which makes Kat curious to know who Grace is. Ed describes her as Michael's sort of partner who's having their baby, but they're not together. Ed goes off to do a job, but not like that. And Kat immediately turns on Ronnie for trying to break up a family just on a hunch.
And she's not wrong.
She's not wrong.
But still, somebody needs to pick Grace up.
Grace is still locked in the office and manages to get an outside line on the phone, but Michael's in that important meeting, I guess, so his phone goes to voicemail.
Right, she calls Michael before she calls an ambulance?
Right. And then she calls Ronnie before she calls an ambulance. She gets Ronnie at home and explains that she's in labour and also locked in the security office. Ronnie says that he'll get her at the hospital now. Although, how that's going to happen, I'm not sure. And then Grace hangs up because she's done with stupid people for today. Ronnie gets to the hospital and is very apologetic while Grace worries that she's going to lose the baby. It's 10 weeks early. Ronnie explains that Michael is on his way. Then the security guard shows up to apologise. But Ronnie is in no mood, accusing him of racially profiling a black pregnant woman. Sorry, love, says the guard, and off he goes. And in amongst this, Grace has found her receipt after all.
Right, yeah. Here's your fucking receipt, you asshole.
I'm pleased that despite going into early labour that she continued to search through her bag for this receipt. No, I just need to do this.
Right.
I need to do this and then I can concentrate on being in labour.
And I'm sure it was like his manager or somebody who said, all right, you need to clean this shit up. You need to go and you need to apologize to this woman because this looks really bad.
It does look bad.
Because it is bad.
Was it the same kind of racial profiling you think that was on view when Michael was stopped at the tram stop?
Yes.
It's the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Do you really think that security guard would have gone up to a pregnant white woman and said, I saw you walk out with the stuff and you didn't go through the checkout line and I'm going to lock you in this room? Do you really think that would happen?
I don't know.
It wouldn't.
I don't know. It seemed that the Michael one was definitely.
Yeah, this was definitely.
And I thought this was probably.
No, this was definitely.
You
I think you
definitely
only
was
think probably because once upon a time you actually did shoplift and was locked in an office, and you're white. But you were actually caught doing it.
I was
whereas
guilty.
She
yeah.
was. It, like I said, it's ridiculous for him to drag her in and accuse her and everything, when all he had to do was like go up to his office and look at the CCTV and see, oh yeah, because she's not going anywhere. She's sitting down. She's like, I'm waiting for my ride.
The thing that made me think that it probably was that if he saw her going out, he probably saw her come back in.
Well, no, he saw her going out the second time after she went for the pee.
Yeah, but these guys stand at the entrance and exit.
Right, yeah. So he had to have seen her the first time.
But he must have seen her come in with bags.
Right. He must have seen her go out with bags the first time and then come back in with bags and then go out again with bags.
Right, and that's the bit that made me think that it probably was.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
he wouldn't go
it's
out
not
of
really
his,
addressed.
Right. And the fact that he goes out of his way to go outside, see her. And also, if she was stealing things, would she be sitting right outside the store with her bags on a bench right outside the store? The fact that he makes such a big deal of it and then drags her back in and then locks her in.
See, I think it didn't become a big deal until he locked her in.
No, it was already a big deal because, he wasn't listening to what she was saying.
Well, she wasn't presenting anything that was proving that she didn't.
Except, of course, for the fact that the stuff that she's got is in bags. Means she had to have gone through the check-in line.
I guess you could turn up with empty bags. We've got tons of Meyer bags. You could if you wanted to.
Yeah. But he had to have seen her.
Yeah, and that's the bit that confuses me. Okie doke.
Also, there are other ways to prove that she didn't steal the stuff, like the CCTV footage.
Yeah, which is well, let's go back and we can look at the cameras and stuff.
Yeah.
But don't need to lock you in an office to do that.
And the fact that she's very much trying to prove it, that she's like, well, no, let me look at my phone. You can see my charge. And then getting upset because her phone's out of charge and stuff. I mean, she's trying very hard to...
Right, and that's I think what I'm saying is, like, it wasn't heated. There was no antagonising the situation. She was trying to rectify the situation.
Right.
This could have calmly been resolved back at the supermarket by looking at the cameras. Nobody needed to be locked in anything.
Right.
It's a kind of locking somebody in something that I've found.
And dragging her back into the store and everything, because I'm sure he's got a walkie on him. He could have called up to his manager. He didn't even have to leave the room to talk to his manager. He could have probably called him on the phone.
Yeah, I didn't like the locking bit.
No.
So later, Michael bursts in. Have I missed it? It's all about you, isn't it, Michael? The area around Gracie's bed isn't exactly a haven of calm as Michael panics about the baby arriving early and Ronnie insists on talking about the racist security guard. Outside the ward, Michael is still making it about him and his baby, but more enthusiastically he's arguing with Ron about why he was late picking Grace up. Ed comes in and calms the situation and tells Michael to go to Grace, and then tells Ronnie not to beat himself up about the whole being late thing. Then Ronnie goes to get coffee, and when he comes back he's in an emotional wreck. Ed knows something is up and demands to know what. Ronnie says he can't do this anymore, and he explains about him and Aggie getting it on when they were just kids before she met Ed, he's very careful to say. Well, Ronnie was married.
Right, yeah, it's like...
Well, Ronnie was... not to this one, though. Yeah, to another one.
To another one, right. Because this one was not even in utero at the time.
I thought so, no. Did they even think about... Or maybe this is just Ronnie. Maybe Ronnie just keeps on managing to find younger models.
Right, because Aggie's younger than Ronnie as well. Because isn't Ed his younger brother?
Oh, I'm not sure about that. I don't know if it's been mentioned. But this isn't about them, it's about Michael. Ronnie thinks Michael is his. Ed does that laugh that he does when his face doesn't move, but then he doesn't think that this is funny. Ronnie can't miss out on being a granddad. Ed tells him to back the fuck off. Outside, Ed calls
Right,
Aggie.
and he's ridiculous too, because he's like, Michael is yours, of course he's yours, you're the one who raised him, blah, 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 but I don't want to miss out on being a grandfather. And it's like, well, if Michael is, for all intents and purposes, Ed's, then you're still not a grandfather.
Outside, Ed calls Aggie and gets confirmation that yes, she got her hole off of Ronnie, but no, Michael is Ed's. She just knows. And at that, Michael and Ronnie run out the hospital. Michael's a daddy to a beautiful daughter. He saw the baby come out, so he's sure it's Gracie's. That was quite funny.
That was funny. I like that part.
And then he says, I've seen the unseeable. They all celebrate, and while Michael is distracted, Ed throws daggers at Ronnie. On Friday, mother and baby are doing well, although Grace is worried that the baby came early as a punishment for what she put Michael through earlier in the year, or last year. Michael insists that they put the past behind them and focus on what they have now. Michael goes home and starts gushing about the baby and parenthood and how it's all wonderful, just to get Ed's knickers in a knot about how Michael might not be his. All that notwithstanding, Ed is very keen to see this maybe granddaughter of his. But this has really knocked Ed for six, and even when he FaceTimes Aggie, who still insists that Michael is his, he can't stand the thought of her and Ronnie being together. Their marriage was built on honesty and trust, apart from that time he was gambling their house away. And now it's for nothing. Then there's a knock at the door, and it's Ronnie's, complete with a pink teddy companion, and Ed looks like he's about to kick his brother's teeth out of his arse. Ed tells him that he's not welcome at the house or at the hospital, and the argument is only brought to an end when James comes out, but not like that, and tells Ed that Aggie's on the phone.
He's already come out like that.
And Aggie's on the phone for him. Ed slams the door in Ronnie's face, and Ronnie has a look about him that this isn't the first time somebody slammed the door in his face. Chatting again with Aggie, Ed says that he feels second best, and that she married him out of spite. She points out that if that was the case, she'd have hightailed it away when he financially ruined him. And he's like, oh, don't you turn this on me. But love is what keeps them together. He needs to know if she loved Ronnie.
Love will keep us together.
She needs to know if she loved Ronnie 30 years ago. And in tears, she admits that she probably was in love with him. But that was before that she met Ed. And she reckons that he must
before she found out he was married.
And she reckons that he must have been in love with people before he met her. That's different, he says. How? She loves him now. She'd marry him again tomorrow. Don't let this be the thing that destroys their marriage. And he says that he needs to sort his head out. Yeah, no kidding. Then he gets a call from Michael. He needs Ed at the hospital stat. The baby is having trouble breathing on her own, and she's back on the ventilator. Plus, she's going to have to be kept in for 10 weeks until the due date. And James,
at least.
Yep. And then James reminds Michael that he has to keep his strength up while Ed is distant as he looks on. And in a quieter moment, Ed reminds Michael that you never stop worrying about your kids. It's just that after 18 years, you stop noticing. Outside, Ronnie shows up, which angers Ed, but they have to cool their jets because James shows up and then Michael. The baby's name is Glory. Ronnie thinks Grace and Michael will be back and forth like a fiddler's elbow while the baby is there, so he offers to buy them a car. And before Ed can protest, Michael has accepted and rushes off to tell Grace.
Do you think her middle name is Hallelujah?
No. Ed concedes that this was a nice gesture, and Ronnie says that he never meant to cause Ed and Aggie trouble. Really?
Right, yeah.
That's as far as we get with that this week.
Ugh. I like the name Glory.
It's an unusual name.
Yeah, but it's cute and it's pretty and I like it.
And she's Grace.
Yes.
So there's going to be a
Grace
hope and
Glory.
a charity and
Hallelujah
and other things.
Glory, glory, hallelujah.
Yeah,
after I said it, I was like, oh wait a second, that's the battle hymn of this republic. So it'd be kind of weird if a British person was named Glory, Hallelujah, Bailey.
No, I think it still works.
Yeah, Glory, Hallelujah, Bailey. Yeah, and there's some
Hallelujah's a bit jazz hands, isn't it? It is a bit.
And then there's some talk too about what Glory's last name is going to be, and all these blustery men are like, oh, of course it's going to be Bailey, and not Grace's last name that I have already forgotten. It starts with an O.
Does it?
I think. Yeah. I'm glad Michael is really a daddy now. And I really like that scene.
It's Grace Vickers.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Anyway.
Or Grace O. Vickers, as you've been hearing it. She's got a bit of Irish in her.
who knows? But anyway, the Ronnie stuff is ridiculous. We already kind of knew that this whole Michael being his thing was going to be a thing.
Kind of knew.
But now...
Just kind of knew.
Stop. But now they've dropped in a much younger wife who's never met the family and yet knows that he had a fling with Aggie at one point and thinks that he's shacking up with Aggie when Aggie and Ed are together. And none of that makes any sense. And it's weird. And it adds a mystery we don't really need.
I'd like Ronnie to have a third secret.
Maybe he's a polygamist. Maybe he's still married to his first wife as well. Mm-hmm. And that's why he's not allowed to show up with this other woman. And he's
also a drag queen.
I would like to see it.
I would like to see that.
Actually really would. But anyway, the fact that he's had 2 wives and no children, and that's why he's so desperate to have Michael as his son now, because apparently he's too old to have children now with his much younger wife.
Well, there's something funny going on there as well, because we don't know what happened between them. We just know that she's sorry for something. Right. So what happened there that made him run off, and what made him run off in this direction after all these years?
Right. And why... And again, the whole timeline doesn't really work as far as, like... Aggie does not seem like the type of person who would break up with somebody and then immediately start sleeping with somebody else, like the very next day, which is kind of what would have to have happened, unless Michael was a preemie, which he wasn't. We've not heard anything about Michael being born premature or anything. And the way Aggie talks about Ed and how she knew she wanted to be with him and everything when she turned up pregnant with Michael makes it seem like they were in an established relationship when she got pregnant with him. And I think the show has really backed itself into a corner because they're like, oh, we're going to make it seem like maybe something happened there, but we don't want Aggie to look like a bad person, like she cheated on Ed. So how are we going to do this? But I like the Grace and Michael stuff. I like the baby being born. I totally understand the whole concern about it being premature and everything because all of my kids were premature. Some more premature than others. And having to see them in the incubator and the vents and all that stuff. That is traumatizing for young parents, especially one who's already lost a child, as Grace has. Right. And I really wish they'd really just focus on that, on Grace and Michael trying to figure out their relationship and, you know, and caring for this new baby and everything, and just drop all this ridiculous Ronnie, Ed, and Aggie stuff, because it really kind of takes away from something that could be quite nice.
Well, I think they're trying to
get everything in.
They're trying to give something for Michael to do and then something for the older Baileys to do.
Right. But does it really all have to be all the same storyline, essentially?
Well, I think they're going to go the storylines will go their separate ways, I think. But I like Ronnie. I think Ronnie's a good addition. I think he's I like him so much that you punched the microphone.
Microphone punched me.
The bits... I can forgive the timeline thing not being 100% plausible. What I really had a problem with was Ronnie and Ed are brothers.
Right.
And all this happened before Ed even met Aggie, so Ronnie was hiding girlfriends from his brother even when they were grown up.
Well, he was hiding girlfriends that he had while he was married to somebody else, yeah.
Oh, I suppose.
Aggie would have been...
I keep on forgetting that bit about him.
Aggie would have been... And see, that's probably why they made him married in the show. Well, we have to make him married so that he wouldn't have intoduced Aggie to Ed.
Oh, what a tangled web we weave.
There were moments that stood out that I really, really liked in this. Like, I liked, towards the end when James... Which, finally, James gets some lines in the show.
Yeah.
Finally. James and Michael and Ed are there, and James has talked to Aggie on the phone, and then Aggie calls Michael. And James is like, no, Mom says, you need to go and you need to eat something. You need to keep up your strength and everything. And you really see the Baileys as this cohesive unit that really supports and loves one another. And you can kind of see on Ed's face that he's realizing how valuable Aggie is as a mother, and that she truly loves him and she truly loves these boys and everything. And I think that's really nice. And it's not something we always get from the Baileys. So that was really nice.
Still no Dee Dee, but we did get a mention of her again.
Right. And you can see her in pictures. Like there's pictures of the whole family in the flat.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. If they focus more on the Michael and Grace and the baby stuff,
Kind of warming to Grace a little bit, I have to say.
I'll be happy. Yeah. And, I hopefully the racism stuff isn't already just forgotten and cleared. Hopefully that security guard gets some comeuppance.
Well,
I hope.
So you kind of worry because nothing happened about it on Friday.
No, because they're all focused on this other stuff now. So it seems like
Once again,
racism is solved in one episode.
Thank goodness.
But really, they really need to... Fresco's needs to go down anyway, especially after what they did to poor Gemma and Chesney in another storyline a year ago.
You don't know the half of it. Our penultimate storyline of the week is Troll Wars. On Wednesday, Steve and Cathy are chatting outside the cabin. He's excited because his fundraising efforts are in the Gazette tomorrow and he asks for a few copies left aside. No problem, says Brian, as long as you pay for them because your paper bill is way overdue. Steve's embarrassed by this, thought Ken took care of it and promises to pay next chance it gets.
Yeah.
Inside,
Brian shouts at him in the street about owing $40 and saying, instead of saying, all right, and then quietly when Steve comes to pick up the paper, say, mate, you still owe us $40.
I've had a newsagent shout at me for owing them 40 quid before. So this feels very written out in my life.
Did they just write out your life for this for this week's episode?
I was walking by the newsagent and it was very much a situation that was like that, where where it came out and said, are you paying your papers anytime soon? I was like, oh shit, I thought my wife had paid for it. No, yours. And that was like 40, 45.
What were you subscribed to?
It was the Times.
Oh.
Fancy.
Oh.
We got the Sunday Times. That's what really pushed the price up.
Yeah.
So, Steve, inside, Cathy is uber pissed at Brian. Steve's just lost his wee boy. Brian is a poster boy for capitalism. They're running a business and he owes 40 quid. If they gave out freebies to everyone with a sob story, they'd never make any money. Cathy has heard enough and pays Steve's paper bill from her own pocket. In the Rovers is a poster for Steve's fundraiser. Cathy and Fizz chat about it. Cathy's still guilty about before and thinking about donating some more money. Fizz suggests that she does some fundraising of her own, maybe a car wash or a window wash. Washing stuff in general is very popular these days. Cathy catches Tracy on her way home from another storyline and explains about the newspapers being paid off, and then she's made an ideas board that she'd like to discuss with her and Steve about further fundraising. How about a barn dance? Tracy says that she'd rather stick pins in her eyes, and she says her family's not Cathy's grief project, and goes in, leaving Cathy to say, well, I never, to no one.
Seriously, and...
I'm all for Tracy being a bitch, but that was completely uncalled for.
It was so manufactured. And I mean, yes, she's coming from another storyline where somebody sat in beetroot and somebody's going to have to pay $5,000, and she didn't get to enjoy being mean to Debbie as much as she had hoped, and she didn't really get the food that she'd hoped. It was just a crappy salad that Debbie put together. She's the chef. Mm-hmm. But still, the fact that she's very much saying, no, we don't want your help fundraising, when that's the whole point of fundraising is just, what does she have against Cathy?
All of a sudden.
Right.
On Friday in the cabin, Brian and Cathy are having a good old bitch about Steve and Tracy in the article about Steve's fundraising in the Gazette. Cathy blames Tracy's attitude on Brian and can't believe that the Kate Bush wannabe mouth almighty pished all over her fundraising ideas and offer for help. Brian tells her to be the bigger person to try again. Tracy's unloading the florist van with some designer bags. Someone's been treating themselves. She, Bernie and Cathy chat about Steve's efforts fundraising, and Cathy again offers her assistance, but Tracy is needlessly rude and seems to accuse Cathy's offer of selfishness on her part. Bernie tells Cathy not to take any notes and get some cider with her and the Rovers. So Cathy and Bernie are bitching about Steve and Tracy and the Rovers. The below-the-line comments in the Gazette Online particularly infuriating Cathy. Emma overhears them chatting and says that she's told Steve and Tracy that they need to get a break, and Tracy has her eyes set on a posh French ski resort for a holiday. When Emma leaves...
Yeah, because when you think Tracy and Steve, you think skiing.
Mm-hmm. And the Tunisian desert. Remember that? Mm-hmm. When Emma leaves... Or was it Moroccan?
It was some desert.
When Emma leaves, Cathy and Bernie begin to wonder how they could afford this and where the money went for the German doctor a few months ago. That's a good point. Mm-hmm. Bernie reckons that they've pocketed the lot and then goes off for a shit, leaving Cathy to start tapping into her phone. At number 1, Steve is wearing a shirt that makes him look like Mr. Blobby has smoked way too much dope, taken a white and thrown up and down himself. He's checking the comments in the Gazette Online, and in amongst all the positive messages he finds loads of comments suggesting that they've ripped off Oliver's fund. The comment that kicked off the negativity came from someone called Lemon Drop. Tracy wants names. Steve can't believe someone would think that he'd line his pockets from the death of his son, and Amy isn't for taking this lying down. Then Cathy's in Roy's Rolls and she overhears Amy complaining to Asha about the trolls. Then Amy goes to pay Cathy for the papers, but Cathy says there's no charge, it's all been taken care of. Oh, that's really lovely of you, Cathy. Thanks, says Amy. And
right.
Cathy looks like she wants the world to swallow her up.
Which is exactly what Tracy should have done, but didn't.
Right.
Once again, somebody is mean to somebody, which makes somebody do something even worse.
Mm-hmm.
This keeps happening on the show.
Yeah. So... Cathy's obviously behind the
she's Lemon
comments.
Drop. Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I picked a better name than that, given that Brian loves his lemon drops.
Right.
So they're going to think it's Brian. Yeah. Okay. So they're going to think it's Brian. Brian's not going to have a clue what anyone's talking about. He's going to deny it. So we're having a troll storyline. Another troll storyline, because we've already dealt with Asha's trolls. Remember that? Oh, yeah.
So now it's new trolls. And it's like something, it's totally... Cathy would never. I don't think. And...
Well, I was thinking this as happened. I was thinking, would Cathy ever do this sort of thing? But the way Cathy let down Yasmin... I think Cathy's
maybe.
kind of...
She has her moments. But, I mean... And you don't think this is true. But I do find it highly suspicious that, that Tracy is buying all these designer things and expensive things all of a sudden, and buying a new shirt for Steve, which is pink with stripes, and wanting to go on vacation. Again, 2 mentions of vacation during a pandemic this week, to some posh place that just totally doesn't sound like a place that she would necessarily enjoy, because we've never heard of her wanting to go skiing before. Makes me think that Tracy, unbeknownst to Steve, may have been lining her pockets a little bit, may have been tipping into the till a wee bit, especially the way that she's like, she's talking about when it was her and Steve and Amy sitting in the house, the way Tracy's like, oh yeah, take a picture of your dad, and oh yeah, we need all the money we can get, and oh yeah, it's really nice that people keep donating, and you should say something about this or that to get more people to donate. Seemed highly suspicious, especially since when Cathy says, oh, I'd like to make another donation, or I'd like to help with fundraising, she pushes her back. That's very suspicious.
I felt it's a little bit too blatant. And I feel like we've done stealing from fundraising.
If anybody on the street is going to be stealing from fundraising, though, it's going to be Tracy.
Yeah, probably. Or Todd.
Yeah.
Anyway. Our final storyline today is, what on earth are you doing? On Monday, Tyrone bumps into Alina and Roy's Rolls. She's working on their website and he calls her Miss Pop Dead Gorgeous. And when he
Right.
realises what he said, he tries to insist that it's just a thing that he and Fizz do that nobody's ever heard of when they talk about people in their businesses, like Mr. Roy's Rolls or Mr. Sexual Predator. There's some definite flirting between them now, and she gets him to promise to like her Insta posts promoting her business and her first appointment, and calls him Mr. Webster's Auto Centre. Back home and after...
Wouldn't Kev be Mr. Webster's Auto Centre?
I think it's just where you work. I don't know what the rules of this game that didn't exist until this week are. Back home and after Jenny questioned Fizz's intentions to ever get married to Tyrone, she explains this to him, but his attention is too far focused on... I don't know where this sentence is going. Back home and after Jenny's questioned Fizzy's intentions to ever get married to Tyrone, she explains this to him, but his attention is far too focused on Alina's website that he claims he's looking at a present idea for Fizz and the girls.
Right, because nothing says 7-year-old girls like a full manicure
Right.
and a brow wax.
On Wednesday, Tyrone catches Alina as she walks by the garage to work. He asks about her business, and she reckons that she needs a car to make a success of it because she's going to have to bus it. He offers to source her one, but she's already got something in mind. You think just because I come from Car and Shore I can't fecht? You think just because she's a girl she doesn't know about cars? And she smiles as she heads off to work, leaving Tyrone to shake his head like Tom Sawyer did at the start of Huckleberry Finn. Later, Alina comes on to the screen in a wee Fiat with steam pissing out the front of it. Tyrone to the rescue, even though Alina says that she can handle it. Then Tyrone, who doesn't work at the factory, is at the factory explaining what's wrong with the car, but by the questions that Alina's asking about the diagnostics, he can tell that she already knows her stuff. If she liked beer and supported Weddy County, she'd be the perfect woman, he says. For who? Asks Alina, and Tyrone comes in his pants a little bit. Back at the garage, Tyrone's
But she doesn't like beer and she hates soccer.
Right. Tyrone's explained to Alina that there's still a bit of work left to do in the car, and at her suggestion, they decide to work on it together. So they do, and they get the car working, and in doing so, end up with smudges of oil on their noses somehow.
Mm-hmm.
When Tyrone gets home, Fizz reveals that she's set up a meeting with Adam. All this wedding talk with Abby has reminded her that they should both sort out their affairs. On Friday at Alina's, she excitedly goes off to work with a gift for Tyrone for all his help yesterday with the car. Seb mutters that Tyrone looks like a granddad these days, and after Alina goes, Emma quizzes him on how things are going romantically between the two of them. Emma suggests that Seb make a big gesture, show that he cares. Seb doesn't look like he gives a fuck, or is thinking. Alina heads round to the garage to give Tyrone his present, and as she's kind of sorting herself in the mirror of a car, she's blocked by Fizz, who briefly wonders whose birthday it is, and then starts some small talk about how the girls are missing Alina. Mm-hmm. Alina sees Seb and runs off, leaving Fizz to wonder what the fuck that was all about.
Yeah.
While Seb manages to talk Alina into having lunch with him today, while he appears to be giving himself a wee footer as he talks to her.
What?
He was doing this as he was talking to her. It looked like he was footering. Anyway. Fizz has brought...
Oh, Gavin Broom.
Fizz has brought... But I took a little gif of it and it looks really bad. And it looks so bad that I didn't post it. Fizz has brought butties to the garage for Tyrone, but his nose is out of joint because she's put piccalilli on them just to finish the jar off. She further annoys him by reminding him about the meeting with Adam. She goes off, leaving Tyrone in a huff, but he brightens immediately when he sees Alina come out of the factory. But when she's oddly shot with him, even Kev wonders what he did to piss her off. Mm-hmm. Back at the flat, Sepp has pulled out all the stops and made Alina a Romanian dish of tripe and big meaty meatballs with some Romanian wine. She worries about drinking when she has work in the afternoon, but he tells her some things are more important than work, like his meatballs.
His big meaty meatballs.
Footering with himself was just the beginning. Later, Seb opens a bottle of wine, sticks his nose in it like he's checking milk, and then pours himself a glass. Sophistication out of the way, he starts to make his move. He wants to be more than just friends with her. They were great together, but she tells him that she doesn't think of him that way anymore and she's moved on. But you were gagging for it the other day when she said that she had the hots for someone, he says. Yeah, that wasn't you, she says. And then sensing that Seb's rage is building, she makes a smart choice and leaves.
Yeah. He's also really creepy with having her say certain words in Romanian, and
he's creepy as fuck. The entirety that he's in it this week. Jeez.
Except when he's talking to his mum at the end.
She heads straight for the community garden, where of course she's immediately found by Tyrone, who checks to see if she's okay. She says she's not. She says she's the worst person ever. He tells her that she's not that she's funny, beautiful, and knows her way around about a Fiat Punto. She tells him that she's falling for him, and when he smiles at this, she moves in to winch the face off him about a minute or two's walk from his front door.
In plain view of the street.
He pulls away. What you doing? I'm with Fizz. I never gave you the come on, he says. He did a little bit. She apologises, this will never happen again, and she runs away. He's all befuddled when he gets home to find that he's late for that meeting with Adam. And the meeting, thankfully, is brief. The house is in Tyrone's name, and as they're not married, they should probably do a will, says Adam. And when Adam leaves, Fizz thinks that they should get married. They've been engaged forever. Ty doesn't think marriage is something they should do for financial reasons, and so by having romance implied at her, Fizz storms out in a huff. And when she comes back, Tyrone explains that they always talked about getting married on a Greek island on a beach with ouzo toasts and plates smashing. Romantic.
Just like Mamma Mia.
Just like Mamma Mia. And
That was cute when they said that together.
And this seems to win Fizz back, and then he heads out back to work again, warning her that he might be late getting home. There's something that he needs to sort out. In the meantime, Ches comes over and Fizz explains the events of the day. She worries that he doesn't know that she loves him. Ches wants to talk about him and Gemma, but he advises her to give Tyrone a surprise. Meanwhile, Tyrone is meeting Alina at the garage. He apologises for his reaction, but since they kissed, he's been able to think of nothing else, not even Mamma Mia. What does it matter, says Alina. You're with fees, and she's not about to break up a family. Best just to forget it. And off she goes. So Tyrone gets home and immediately goes to bed, claiming to bail. Chesney comes in to collect the washing Fizz has done for him, and she reveals that she's only gone and booked their dream wedding on a Greek island, all on the credit card. Live your dream with the one you love, the website says. Tyrone is going to be blown off his feet. And that is how we end this week's episodes.
Somebody posted on Twitter, when I thought about who would be the first people to kiss on screen after the pandemic, I would have never guessed it would have been Alina and Tyrone. And they're right. Nobody would have thought that this was going to happen. Right. Nobody in a million years would have said, yeah, this makes sense. Because it doesn't.
Did you see the little thing that the show posted on how they did that?
No.
Because they didn't obviously kiss.
Right, yeah, obviously.
It was all kind of camera trickery.
Kind of, yeah.
And angles and stuff.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Really well done.
Yeah.
Trying to find something positive in this. That was really well done.
I liked Chesney and Fizz hanging out and doing laundry. And Chesney, bitching about Bernie leaving things in her pockets.
I continually forget
that they're siblings.
Right. Like, what the fuck's Chesney doing round there? And why is he talking to Fizz like he's known her his entire... Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, there is that sibling thing.
Right.
Maybe that gives them some history.
Right.
I loved the bit where every time Fizz is trying to talk about something, Chesney turns it
into a Gemma thing.
Into a Gemma and him thing.
Right.
And to the point where Fizz says, we're not talking about you and Gemma now, right? And he's like, oh yeah, sorry.
You're fine.
I quite like that bit.
Yeah. That's the only thing I like about the storyline is Fizz and Chesney getting a chance to hang out and complain about their significant others.
There's nothing else that's good about this.
No, there really isn't. There really isn't.
I remember.
I guess Seb getting knocked back was good because.
Oh, I was actually quite scared for Alina at that point because he was very much, look, I've put all this effort into this stupid fucking lunch.
Right.
I want my whole.
Right. Yeah.
That was kind of how he was looking.
Yeah.
And later on, he tries to play it down when he's talking to Abby by saying, oh, I've just made a fool of myself.
Yeah.
But that isn't how it looked. It didn't look like
he
was making a fool of himself. It looked like he felt he was entitled now to have another go on their fronties. And when that didn't happen, or that looked like it wasn't going to happen, he was looking kind of angry about it.
Yes, he did. Ugh.
Plus, he sniffed a bottle of wine.
People sniff wine. It's fine.
Yeah, you pour it and then you sniff it.
Yeah.
You don't sniff out the bottle and then pour it.
It's fine. It seems like he really, once he calmed down, he realized what an asshole he is. And that's good. At least he can recognize that he was a dick.
Mm-hmm.
So, At least he's not going to Abby and complaining that
he's been
been wronged and he's been led on, because he absolutely wasn't.
No.
When somebody says that tells you that they're into someone, you don't automatically assume it's you.
Right.
Because if it was you, they'd say, I'm into you.
Or they could say, if you want to be coy about it, then you could say that I'm into someone, but then you'd give them the eyes and the little ho-he signals,
wink,
right?
Nudge, nudge.
You wouldn't just... I think she went to the bathroom after that.
Yeah.
She removed herself from the conversation.
Right.
Yeah. But the very first time that there was a conversation between Tyrone and Alina, which was basically Tyrone saying, you can stay at our house if you need to.
And us saying...
Wait, have they ever spoken to each other?
Yeah.
And
Again,
then,
it's the show writing something into existence that should not happen.
And then when she moved in, and there was a kind of jokey, this is going to end with Tyrone walking in on Alina in the shower or something like that, or there's going to be some kind of awkwardness in the house having Alina there, and it did happen. You know, that's what this has all been set up to have. Is this little bit of fun where there's a comical misunderstanding and people are embarrassed. It's a comedy of manners that is
and then we move on from it.
Right.
At least Fizz this week was normal Fizz and wasn't ridiculing or mocking him for anything. Mm-hmm. So at least we have that, because I really hated them having her like mock him for the whole Alina thing last week and the week before.
Yeah, the first time was like, okay, fine, but
when it keeps happening, it's like, all right,
you're doing it for the entire episode. Yeah,
right.
You're
Enough.
actively now pushing him away.
And
you're actively making this happen,
right?
Because now you're just really planting the seed in his head,
right?
If it wasn't already there,
yeah. And getting his male ego in a twist by saying that she's out of his league. Mm-hmm. Well, that just sets him up for a challenge, right? Anyway, the less said, the better.
Your moment of the week?
I think it has to be that meeting of the Baileys, you know, where James tells Michael to eat. And, you know, and Aggie on the phone and everything, and Ed realizing what he's got here.
Is there a screenshot that encapsulates all that?
Yeah, James. What do you think is the moment of the week? Don't say Sally twirling around in a dress.
That was my moment of the week. I know it isn't the moment of the week, but it was my moment of the week. I don't know. Hand it to James for...
Well, no, it's not really handing it to James. James is a screenshot, but it's the Baileys coming together and James telling Michael to eat and take care of himself because that baby and Grace is going to need him, and calming Michael down and everything and being supportive of one another, and them just fucking finally giving James lines that are just, oi,
that's not my responsibility.
Bye.
Fine. Grudgingly. That is our...
I am Timbot 4000 and I haven't a fucking clue what's going on right now.
Right, well, what's happening is you're interrupting me, Timbot, at a very important part of the podcast where I'm supposed to be hitting a button here that's going to say...
Moment of the week.
Moment of the week.
A boring moment of the week.
Brian wittering on about capitalism.
Well, he didn't witter on about capitalism, I did.
Yeah.
Am I the boring moment of the week?
Yes. You're the boring moment of the week.
Every week.
No, but the way I don't know, is it that or is it Sam with the history of curry?
Or
talking about sewing machines?
I was kind of thinking maybe it was Sam and Simon pointing at the moon, which we didn't see, but it was referred to. That was quite boring.
No, see, I thought that was kind of lovely that, you know, that they're friends again. Sam and sewing machines, that's our boring moment of the week.
That'll do.
Boring moment of the week.
If you've ever known far too much about curry and then insisted on telling everyone about it,
Don't tell us
don't
about
tell us
it.
about it. So avoid the talkofthestreet@gmail.com, which is our email address and also our address on Skype for voicemail and PayPal if you want to chuck a couple of bucks into our virtual tip jar. We're at Curry Podcast on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Please check out our merch store and YouTube channel, links to which you can find on the Twitter bio or on the other stuff page of thetalkofthestreet.podbean.com. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes or your podcast provider of choice. Thanks for making it to the end of another episode, and we will be back next week with more Talk of the Street. Cheerio.
Bye.